What's happening, everybody, and welcome back to another Sunday Scan. I hope that everyone had a great week and a great weekend, and we're excited to dive into some charts and get prepared for the week ahead. So I'm going to review some charts and some things that were in play over the last week, and then later on, Stan is going to join us to go over the main watches for the week. And then, we have Traders for a Cause coming up next week as well. So I'm very excited to see old friends, to meet new friends, and just to really connect with the trading community. So I will see all of you who are attending there. I'm very excited. So let's get right into it with starting with CHSN. So this is one of those old liquidation trades that, it had someone very involved in gamifying it. And so a lot of these trades, they either have groups or insiders or some kind of funds that own most of the float. They're toying around with it. They halt it down, they halt it up. They eventually try to get shorts in there, and then they have a giant blowout, and then they liquidate into that. And sometimes they do multiple rounds of it. And so there's certain names that you just have to immediately have your antenna up, or even have them on a list of, do not touch. And it especially applies for short sellers. Sometimes people can try to trade these long, sometimes they can try to trade them short. And, it's really all about just knowing what are you prepared to deal with. And especially on the short side, one of the benefits to people who short sell is that they tend to have high probability trades set up for them pretty frequently. And whether that's something that gaps up on, weak news and kind of stalls out or blows out and then starts to fail to follow through and fades down, we see that happen all the time. And so short sellers have a lot of options to be able to choose from. And, it's usually a fairly high win rate kind of strategy, high probability. And if people can do it safely, then they can have a long and prosperous career doing it. But there's a couple of things that can really take out even good short sellers, whether someone's new or very experienced. And it's names like this. It's names that are very gamified, things that can get incredibly thin and that they can go up, 10x, 20x, 50x, or they can, go into circuit halts and be quoting things, 100x higher. And we've seen that. And so what I would suggest that people really think about is, especially on the short side, when you have so many good things that are popping up all the time, why even touch things like this on the short side? And this is more of my personal opinion on this. And I know that some people are able to trade versions of these when there's more normalized action. But, just for me personally, these would all go on a do not touch list. And the reason for that is because all setups, all trading, kind of decisions have to be made on alternatives. And when you have a lot of alternatives that you can still have good reward on it, but the risk is not very high compared to something where, you might have some good reward on something like this if you're right, but the risk is so high that it's really just playing Russian roulette with your portfolio and with your career. And, people have to ask themselves, if they have access to other good setups, if they have access to good things that are coming into their wheelhouse all the time, why even trade some things like this on the short side? Why even touch them? You have things that are halting up and down nonstop. You have $1 million candles, going down. You have people trapping them. You have people who are involved with these companies who are specifically trying to basically blow out shorts or to ruin the financial lives of people trading them. So, everyone needs to think through these things when they decide to trade these things or not to trade them. And I know for myself, especially on the short side, this is not something that I would ever touch because there's just so many other advantages to shorting things that are high probability, that are thick, that are, safer, as opposed to something that can just be thrown up, 10x or down 10x. It's just not the way to really approach, a long and good trading career. So mini rant on something like that. And it almost reminds me of, stupid analogy, but there was like a movie called The Grizzly Man. There was like a documentary of this guy who would spend a lot of time with grizzly bears, and he was so passionate about them and knew everything about them, and he lived with them and he was super comfortable with them. And, one day he got eaten by a grizzly bear. And the moral of the story is that no matter how comfortable you are with some of these things, no matter how well you think you know them, the nature of these is to, basically be violent against traders. And so it's up to you if you want to play in that arena. But these are grizzly man trades for me, and I would not be touching these, especially on the short side. So mini rant over there, but CHSN is just one to study, to think hard about, and these are fairly frequent in this market. So if you are a short seller, you need to be extra careful with what names you allow to come into your wheelhouse. So that's the last thing I'll say on this, and let's move on to the next one. TLT. This is the bond portfolio, or a bond ETF that tracks basically bonds. So as we had some economic news come out, we basically had yields start to spike as the Fed is doing some smaller rate cuts going forward because the economy is doing well and the labor market is actually doing pretty well. So this was a nice smooth trade on the downside, or a nice move on the downside in bonds as yields rose. So that was something that was kind of on my radar. And we talked about this maybe a couple of weeks ago, or yes, I think several weeks ago. And so this was a nice thing that played out. The next thing is DUO. So this is a small cap Chinese name. Obviously, the Chinese names have been running like crazy, and Nate has some great reads on something like this, where, this is one of those names where it looked like it was going to squeeze out. It looked like it was going to squeeze out, and you had people get more and more bullish on it. And then finally, you had, offerings come out. And even after it had, I think, an offering on Friday, it, kind of halted down and then halted back up, spooked everybody out. And then there was a clean trade on the other side of that for people who are participating in something like that on the short side. So this was a name that was definitely in play. And you have some other ones that I'll get into later on, like UXIN, where you have these, different tiers of these Chinese companies that are all running with the sector. And some of them are able to be traded on the long side, some on the short side. But, a lot of, decently natural action where you have lots of buyers and lots of sellers, as opposed to just one person or a group in there that's controlling these things up or down. So this was a name that was definitely in play over the last week. EVGO. This was another one where they had a catalyst. They got a DOE contract, and this has been running nonstop. And you can just see that this action right here is a supply and demand imbalance, where you basically have more volume coming in. Every dip is soaked and a very clean trend line up. And then you have the next period, which is consolidation. And then you could potentially have either a ramp up and failed follow through, or you could have, it ramps up, it holds, soaks, and breaks those highs, and you have the next leg up. So EVGO was another one, very much so in play for the week. USO, this one spiked on the Middle Eastern headlines. And, basically, oil has been trending down for a while now, if we kind of zoom out on this chart. But you can see that when there are headlines with potential things with Iran or some other countries that are involved with oil, and you had some OPEC news as well, that you can have some sudden shifts in buying there. And so a way to kind of play something like that is when you see those headlines, you can go to names like INDO, which we had some very nice trades in the room on that, where people were watching the oil price, and then later on they were able to trade this kind of in tandem with that, kind of the anchor and the ship idea, where you basically have the ship of the oil price moving in one direction, and then you can have the anchor, all the things that it drags behind it, and it can be a sector trade with that until oil settles down, if it settles down, and then you can have some unwinds in a lot of these names. So those are just a few ones that I want to touch on, and now we're going to bring on Stan for the main watches, but I'll give a disclaimer before I bring him on that neither he nor I are financial advisors, and these are not buy or sell recommendations. This is for informational and educational purposes only. Now let's chat with Stan. Stan, how are you doing? Welcome back.
Hey, Chris, doing pretty well, and happy to be back here. Looking forward to this last Sunday video before our event next week.
Yeah, 100%. And I know that you're going to be doing a talk there that I'm very excited to hear. And, we're going to be able to hang out and catch up. We haven't seen each other since last year. And I'm just excited to see everyone in the community. And, this is something that we've all been looking forward to for a very long time. So just very excited about it. But yeah, tell me what you're thinking about the overall market. What have you been watching? And then we'll pull up some charts and go through some main watches.
Yeah, absolutely. So, some of my general market thoughts, obviously the China basket names, they're still in still breakout mode. We did have a little bit of back and forth last week that we saw, but also the China side was closed. So this is something that I will be looking forward to in the coming week of, how is the volume now? How is the liquidity? Just to see if there's any sentiment shift or if we just continue to go higher as the China market, reopens. And overall, the exciting part about this sector move is that there are many groupings within the sector itself. You have vehicles to choose from all sorts of price ranges. You have NIO that started at NIO that started at like $4, I believe, or then you have XPEV, XPEV. Then you have LI, JD, the PDD, BABA. They're all differently structured. Liquidity moves differently, volume is different, price is different, which is great because it provides an opportunity for a whole array of market participants, right? Whether you're on the long side or short side or small account, large account, whatever. So that's the exciting part about the current sector move. And what I will be focusing on next week is just as we see what the impact is and the effect of the markets reopening in China, we'll be just looking for any laggards out of these groupings. So if you think of it of a pack and one is acting a little bit weaker versus the rest, if and when we do take a breather or things pull back or slow down, that one will be my main focus to go to as it will, probably speed up a little bit quicker than the rest and react a little bit different than the rest.
Yeah, totally. And that's really what relative weakness is all about. You're looking for something that's already kind of trying to go down a bit, but the sector is preventing it. And so when you have the sector actually turn, then that becomes the leader to the downside. Just the same way when you have a weak market and you have something that's acting strong and acting like it's trying to go up, but it's being held back by something, in the sector or something on the macro front. When that eventually turns, then those relative strength names become the leaders to the upside. So it's the exact same concept, and it's something that I use in my trading. I know that you use in your trading. And, like you're saying, there's just so many different subgroups to choose from, whether people like to trade the large caps, the BABAs, the PDDs. Those all trade in tandem together for the most part. And then you have, FUTU and TIGR with some of the other ones that are acting similar. And so you just have so many different classes that you can really zone in on what price range do you want? What kind of action are you looking for? Do you want names with options, names without options? And you can really just choose all the way down to the DUOs and the UXIN and things like that. So just so much opportunity. And I always say this, but in markets, you're looking for the in-play things with abnormal catalysts, volume, things like that, because that's where you get abnormal range. So it's very common when sectors are running or themes are running that we're going to have a lot of the similar names on watch, and I think that's really the place to be. And as long as you can differentiate yourself from the rest of the crowd that's getting chopped up or fighting something, it's like if you can be the patient one, whether it's on the long side or the short side or with options or anything, those are going to be the people who actually capitalize on these moves, as opposed to people who are trying to catch every zig and zag along the way, and then when the big move comes, that they're not actually there for it.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Agreed 100%.
Great. Well, I'm going to pull up your chart, Stan, and I'm excited to hear what you have on watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with some of the larger cap China names. So BABA, PDD, and again, these are going to be more so for me to get a feel of what's happening with the overall sector move. So I will be keeping these on watch as more so a guide of what to scale into from there. But ideally, we'll focus on a couple of subgroups of these, and something as PDD. I'm sorry, we're actually on PDD right now. BABA. if I pull up the higher time frame chart, we can kind of see that it's still trending higher, and over the last several sessions we are in a little bit of a consolidation mode. So we'll keep a watch on Monday and forward of how this reacts to the fresh liquidity and volume that's coming in from reopening the China markets. The next one that I have on watch is PEV. That's this one reminds me a little bit of what DUO did. DUO or Duo. We had this nice volume day right here, about 260 million, and then similar price range as well, right? We settled around the $1 range, and then we had a nice move thereafter, went all the way to 460, and we saw actually DUO unwind nicely on Friday down to the 220s. So something like that is what I'll keep in mind for PEV. Again, not saying it's going to $4 or $5. It's more so just to look at and have some sort of a reference for the chart structure. But ideally on Monday, I would welcome either a gap up, maybe gap up above 110, maybe 115, 120, and then look into some sort of exhaustion into the 150s, and look to scale if we have a fail to follow through setup, maybe 150s, 160s, clear out, check in with this area from early in the year and late last year, and then look to see if we can find a trade there. Or if I'm also interested, if this gaps down a little bit, maybe opens sub $1.96, 98, and then if it pulls back and it holds versus this 90s level, then I wouldn't mind entertaining a long either, because we have some demand, sub this chart structure. So I don't mind risking, over under 90s on a pull, and then look to scale from there. The next one that I have on watch is KXIN. And KXIN, that had a nice trap move over here. So I remember trading it, I believe, this day. And it had a pretty decent gap, but then it ended up selling off. And then you can see the following day we go from 500 million down to 35. So less than 10% of the volume. And then we had a nice slow steady walk. And on Friday, nice little fail there, pretty much throughout the day. However, it has still retained the overall chart structure if we look at it, as far as the trend. So ideally on Monday, if we gap up 38, 39s, check in with this, mid 40s area, that would be great. But I will be cautious if it continues to hold this trend, as again, we turned pretty big volume here on this day. On October 2nd, we're at a little bit over 650 million, and then it's just been steady higher on relatively decreasing volume. So I just want to make sure that if there is an agenda in there, it's accounted for, and then again just pick my spots to scale into. The next couple that I haven't watched are HKD and Top. Pretty much the same idea behind these two. So higher the better. And you have to consider, right, the behavior of these type of charts or tickers, their personality, their history. So this isn't anything to fight, but if we gap up and check in with this 5 plus area, 520s or 550s, I wouldn't mind look to fade that failed momentum once, and if it occurs. So similar with Top, if we gap up maybe 250s, maybe check in with the 3s, that would be a deal. But essentially for both names, higher the better, and we'll just look to fade any momentum. And the last one that I have on watch is TIGR, and this is actually going to be my main focus for next week. Nice chart, right? Nice move here all the way from mid threes or so, low threes, and here we are over 12s, and we actually hit, I believe, 13, over 13s in after hours on Friday. So this is something that again, it's part of a sector move. So it's a name where it really interests me because there is volume, there is liquidity, the spotlight is on it, and it's something that we have seen many times before in the markets. You can recently look at some of the GME and meme craze, or before then you can look at Mara Coin, CLSK, Riot, those type of tickers when we had the crypto move. So this is the same thing in a way, right? But also different because it's the China sector move, right? It always does a little extra, a little more on both sides. But TIGR will be my main focus on Monday, and it's setting up, ideally for a good opportunity there. Nothing to fight front side. You can clearly see the trend slowly accelerating. So that is what piques my interest, and that's why I'm interested in this name. So ideally, gap up, blowout, 14, 15 circuits, whatever it decides to do. But I'm not interested in the front side. I want to see the volume exhaust. I want to see the exchange, and then I want that confirmed. And then I will be more comfortable into sizing into a position. I don't mind trading in front side, but just with feelers, just to get invested in the tape, just to get invested in the actual price move, in the actual emotions of the ticker itself. So that's pretty much it for me as far as what next week looks like. And back to you, Chris. I don't know if you have anything for us to look at.
Yeah, definitely. So Tiger is going to be on watch for me too. And this is a name that, when you have these sector moves, and it could be China, it could be AI, it could be whatever, you a lot of times get these tickers that are just the ideal vehicles for like the biggest runners. And what I mean by that is that you usually have a name that's like maybe a mid cap or something, something where institutions can actually, they can play around in something like this. And then this had a ton of bullish option flow, a ton of calls being bought over multiple time frames. So just how like SMCI or something like that was running with a theme, it was getting, that insane call buying. And, you have all these big players that can step into something like this. These are the ones that tend to go a little bit further than people think. And then they get to these inflection points, and whether that's on a Thursday, Friday with the option stuff, or whether it's there's a piece of news with the China sector and, something reverses there. But these are the ones that like it snowballs higher, and it's like, everyone piles on until something sets it off. Something has to change. And whether that's, a piece of news, whether it's an options expiration, whether it's someone exits or shorts get blown out, there needs to be something to cause that inflection point. And then you can basically watch for a flush, and then you can see how it's acting there. And if it's acting like everyone just got blown out and now it's getting heavy, now they're sellers, now all the weak hands that were joining on the way up are now starting to have second thoughts or exit. Those are the ones that can have a beautiful flush down, and you can capitalize on those moves. But like we were talking about earlier, these are the names that you need patience on, because if you're fighting them up all the way and you're losing, 5%, 5%, by the time it gets ready to go, people are so exhausted that you missed the entire backside of the move. And whether it's just, a one day real big correction, or, and then it continues higher, or if it's like a blow off top and then that's it, we don't know. And so you just need to have a good blowout. You need to have something change, and then you can have a risk level to really play something like that. So Tiger is going to be on watch for me as well. And I'll pull up my chart here, and you can see, and Nate brought this up too, that if you were to look over, the last however long, a couple of years, 5 years, look at similar runs in the past, and you can use that to gauge range anticipation. And you can see, when during like when the U.S. markets had their COVID run or the 2020, 2021 kind of run, you can see, what that excess liquidity did to some of these names. And now you have like a mini version of that with China doing a much smaller package of stimulus, but still stimulus, and it's getting things going. So, who knows? Maybe it runs up into that, 15 level. Maybe it keeps going and hits 20 or something. Play around with mental exercises. If this were a 40-cent stock that just went to 80 cents, then $1.20, it wouldn't be outrageous to think it could go to $1.50, $2. And so just play around and try to keep use different mental tricks to keep you on track and avoid getting so biased on something like this. So the next name that I have on watch is Meta. And so this is going to be on watch for relative strength. I was watching this all last week too. And this is one of those names where it had the positive AI news. They have different hardware things that are benefiting the company now, and they are just having a massive run. So I think we're going to be over 600 soon. And then, we could really have a nice blow off for 630, 650 or something like that over the next couple of weeks. So this will be on watch as long as it's acting strong, to look for relative strength and to really play that. Next, we have UXIN, and I'm going to zoom way in for this one. So this is just a small cap on watch, one of the China names, and you can see that this had a nice run up, some nice consolidation, and we had the volume profile change from heavy volume, the volume dried out, and then you kind of had that liquidity trap. I was talking about this a bit on Friday, I believe, where it's like you can have that first leg up, and then once that volume comes in and then it kind of dries up, that's usually like the cover. And so that can be like the end of it for now, until you have it kind of retrap, get some more shorts in there, and like it's charging back up. And now it's coming up to the point where it's at these previous highs. And so we'll see into next week if we have, some dips and then grinds up and it has the next squeeze out, or if it, is basically exhausting out into that level and fails. So that will be on watch. The next name, PDD, same thoughts as Stan for the most part on something like this, where, it's coming up to these prior levels and it's just been consolidating. And if news continues to stay positive in China, then we could definitely have a move higher. But if it starts to act heavy, or if we get some kind of news, then we could start to retrace. And even if it does something like a cup and handle where it really dips and consolidates for the next week or two, that could be a playable dip off of there before it moves eventually higher. So that will be on watch along with the other big names like Baba. And then you have a couple of these interesting names. So this is VST. And I think maybe a couple of weeks ago, we had the other one that was related to this CEG was on watch. And these are like a different theme. It's like the utilities that are going to be used to possibly power some of the AI stuff. And so you have charts like this and CEG that are, going parabolic. And these are the names where it's not something to step in front of at all, but they will eventually have one of those blowout days and one of those sitbacks where that can be playable. So whether that's, after it gets to 150 or whether it's on a Thursday or Friday or something, I'm going to definitely have these on watch for when they start to sit back. But, if big money is getting into these, you don't want to fight it. You just want to wait for the day where everyone's jumping on board and then something starts to go the opposite direction and it throws people off. And then you have that big dip. And then that was basically it. So those are my watches for the upcoming week. And then we'll see if there's any smaller names or anything that comes up. For me personally in this market, it's very day to day where, I'm looking to see what are the themes, what are the catalysts, what are the news pieces. And then that's where I'm really focusing in. But I think that we have some similar names on watch. And any thoughts on any of those, Stan?
No, I mean, I think a great way in recognizing some of the ones that maintain relative strength so far, such as the Meta. I think there might be a good opportunity there, but overall, we are in line in our thoughts as far as seeing what the market brings next week and what that liquidity looks like. So being prepared for both scenarios or for more than one scenario is always a good thing. You stay informed and you're able to make a quicker decision in and when and if you have to.
100%. So yeah, those are great. Thanks for coming on, and I'm going to see you next week in Vegas. So we're super pumped for Traders for a Cause, and we'll see everybody who is attending there. So Stan, thank you. Have a great week, and I'll see you in a week.
All right. Thank you, Chris. See you there.
See ya. Thank you for watching Sunday Scan. Be sure to check out other content put out by Investors Underground, including interviews, podcasts, educational material, and more. Thank you.